Ladies and gentlemen, sports fans alike, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago, one of the couple, two, three best podcasts around. So sit back, grab yourself a cold one and a Polish sausage, park your keister in the French room, and listen to Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago.
In Chicago, you know that all sports rock. The Bears, Hawks, Bulls, Cubs, and Sox. Pick your favorite, you can choose, as long as the Packers lose. For everything you need to know, it's Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. This is your hosts Alex and Sean. On this episode, we're going to be talking about the Bears taking a giant dump on the middle of Soldier Field, the Blackhawks having no idea what they're doing, the White Sox getting bounced out of the playoffs, and one bit of bright news. But first, I'd like to thank our sponsor, the Rockford Ice Hogs. If you're not familiar with the Rockford Ice Hogs, they're the AHL minor league affiliate of the Chicago Blackhawks. What does that mean for you? You get to see the stars of tomorrow today at family-friendly, affordable prices. The season is starting very shortly, so don't miss out. Head on over to icehogs.com, get yourself a hat, shirt, jersey, tickets, and more. Tell them Swerski Sports sent you. Alex, I don't even know how to explain today. It was the Bears teased us. They teased us. They went, look, this is what it could look like. But it won't.
That's a good way to describe it. Teased us. What you said was kind of spot on with how I was feeling going into this recording. How do I feel about today? Should I be sad? Should I be mad? Should I be furious? Should I be apathetic? I think the way I would sum it up the most is just kind of disheartened and humbled, because I think if you took what happened today against Green Bay, you kind of look at yourself in the mirror and say, you know what? This is where we are, and we're still trying to figure shit out. Because this was a day where you could say was a turning point for this season if there was going to be one. If you went out and surprised people and won this game and got into first place, all of a sudden you're thinking, wow, this is more than just a season to develop Justin Fields. This is a season where you can maybe look at legitimately competing for a playoff spot. And, against our better judgment, and I think you and I both had the same feeling, we didn't expect to win this game. I don't think a lot of people who root for the Bears were expecting to win this game, but there was still that little glimmer of hope going into this game. We're thinking, all right, they came off a great win against Vegas. Green Bay, while they have a very good record, has, they've shown chinks in the armor, and they have some key injuries in their secondary. And you look at how good that the front seven have played, there was a pathway to thinking, maybe, just maybe, there was a way we can pull this off. But no, status quo as usual. Green Bay beats us. Aaron Rodgers himself yells, "I still own you" at the fans. Something that has been being posted over and over again by literally every single sports website and outlet out there. It was just a flat reminder that they are not on their level yet, and we shouldn't expect anything more.
Here's my problem is if you read Twitter, if you listen to sports radio, everybody's talking about what Justin Fields could have done better to win this game. And I want to know, why are we nitpicking every little thing that a rookie quarterback is doing when it's Matt Nagy's offense that sucks? It's not like this was a high-powered offense and Justin Fields came in and it just flatlined. He's had a bad the entire time he's been here. So at what point do you go, hey, maybe we have a bad offensive scheme with a bad offensive coach who can't put our team in a winning position, and can't scheme our wide receivers open. We have the fastest core of wide receivers in the NFL, and none of them can get open playing second and third string cornerbacks.
Yeah.
You know what that tells me? You know what that tells me is that the offensive schemes, the routes they're running are shit. It's flat out. If Darnell Mooney can't get open, Allen Robinson can't get open against Rasul Douglas in 2021, then the reason is that the scheme is bad. The scheme is bad. I don't know what else to say. Like, why do the problem? You know why Justin Fields didn't get us the win? Because he has a bad head coach that can't develop an offense.
I mean, I'm not saying you're wrong on that account. And I totally get what you're saying. And I do partially agree with you. I am going to say this, though. There are things Justin Fields does need to get better at. There really are. I think he holds onto the ball way too long.
I'm not saying that Justin Fields is perfect. That is not, but I want to get to the root of things. Is I watch Mac Jones just play just now, and he's given the opportunity that they put him in a position to win. They scheme open his receivers. Mm-hmm. They have checkdowns. They give him easy throws. They play to his strengths. Is how many plays were since Justin Fields has come in to play quarterback in the regular season, have they rolled out as a designed rollout?
Not a lot.
Very few. Maybe 3% of plays, maybe at most. And that's being generous. They're not doing it. They're not playing to his strengths. They're not giving him easy throws to the beginning of games to start it off. And they're going with the power run game. All right, that's good. That's a start. But you need to have routes that you allow your receivers to get open, and you have to get, if you look, there was plays where people were like, oh, Justin Fields is hanging on the ball too long. And there's certain plays that he was, but there's certain ones where you look and by the time the pressure is already coming to him, the wide receivers haven't even hit their brakes in the routes yet. Which
is an issue. That's a big issue.
You can't put that on him, because then it's where is he supposed to throw? They're not even in their breaks yet, and the pressure's already coming. The play that everyone's talking about, oh, Allen Robinson was wide open. I haven't seen the all 22 where I can, or even a side by side at the exact time of what Justin Fields was happening. But I think it was when he was trying to evade a tackle. And if you're trying to evade a tackle and you're switching gears and trying to run, he's like a 23-year-old kid rookie. You're not going to be breaking the play, looking downfield, and have all your wits about you to be like, yes, I'm making this throw. That's not even most veterans can do that. There's a handful of quarterbacks that do that. It's tough to be like, well, it's wide open. You know what? It's maybe give the guy a benefit of the doubt, and let's go. The one maybe he should have broken a tackle and then immediately looked downfield as he was rolling out and thrown 40 yards on the run to a guy. Okay, yeah, sure, but you know who does that? That's an Aaron Rodgers play. That's a Tom Brady play. That's a couple of years ago Ben Roethlisberger play. There's not that. That's not a standard starter play.
Well, it also doesn't help the situation too. Is there were moments in this game where the pressure was all over him, and I mean the opposing pressure. There was pocket was collapsing and they weren't rolling him out. So when you're not rolling him out and he's in the pocket and the pocket's collapsing, then things tend to get a little rough. And that's what we saw too. I mean, once again, you see everything that could possibly go wrong on multiple offensive drives. Really, in my opinion, the middle of the game lost the Bears the game, because you started off insanely well. That first drive was beautiful. You had Khalil Herbert with some nice runs. You had Justin Fields with some nice throws, and they got into the end zone nice and quickly. And then it looked like things were continuing to go in your favor. You're at midfield, you get a first down on a 4th and 1, and then everything just fell apart. And I want to make something very, very clear. I'm not solely pointing at the referees saying they lost the Bears this game, but we have to talk about this at some point. What was that refereeing today?
I want to get
to hell was that?
It was terrible, but I still want to dig into this Bears offense a little more. The Bears offensive rankings under Matt Nagy is, let's see, last year offensively, they were 22nd in the league in points, 26th in yards. The year before, they were 29th in points, 29th in yards. And in 2018, they were 9th in points and 21 in yards. And the 9th in points was a lot to do with the field
defense
position they got because of how many turnovers the Bears defense got.
Yep.
But if you really look at Matt Nagy this year, they're 30th in points, 32 in yards. This is an absolute undeniable failure of a head coach. Absolute failure. And the fact that he should just be fired. The Bears, I don't think they have a terrible team. We can see they can run the ball. They can play good defense. But at this point, your offensive scheme is not there. You have fast receivers. You've got your quarterback of the future. You've got a run game that is working. You've got a decent defense. Why can't you just pull the trigger and fire Matt Nagy and say, you know what, this is not working, and let's regroup? I don't see a reason. He's still saying he is in his 4th year of being the head coach of this team, and we're 6 games in, so we're like a third of the way through his 4th season, and he's still saying things like, I got to watch the tape to see the whys of this offense, of why we're not clicking. You know what? Where were you last year and the year before? I know the whys. And it's funny because I keep saying it is Matt Nagy needs a mirror. And it's hilarious because Olin Kreutz today was saying, you want to know the whys? Hang a mirror in your office, Matt Nagy. And that's absolute fact. Matt Nagy is the number 1, number 2, the number 3, the number 4, and the number 5 reasons why the Bears are not playing well. He is an albatross. He is an anchor on this team, and he needs to be fired tomorrow. Like there's absolute no way for the Bears to go forward, and you're wasting a year where you could, with what you have in-house. And I would not promote anybody in the offensive side to be a replacement permanently. In the offseason, I'm probably going after Brian Daboll, the offensive coordinator of the Bills. But if I'm the Bears, I'm jettisoning Matt Nagy and going, let's regroup. Let's see what we can do, because that way we can be a better selling point for our next head coach and kind of help figure out our identity.
Well, the next few weeks, you got some more good opponents coming up. So if you continue to lose, what does that do for the course of this team? You know what I mean? You have that feeling if they win 7 or 8 games, that's going to justify keeping Matt Nagy, though I'm not sure they're going to win 7 and 8 games. I could see them winning 6 or 7, not really 8 at this point, but who knows? You never know. But
the part of the issue is the Bears played well enough to beat most teams today.
Right.
But they're not going to beat any good teams.
Right.
They shoot themselves in the foot, and then they're like, well, why? What happened? Whoa, I don't know. We're just going to go out there and we're going to execute better. And you know what? It's at some point, if you don't have a better scheme, it doesn't matter how well you execute, you're not going to win.
Well, yeah, I mean, look at the last 2 years. Last year, 8-8. The year before that, 8-8. Most of those 8 wins were against equal to or lower teams, with the occasional sprinkled in upset win here or there, like the one against Tom Brady last year. But other than that, you face the big dogs, and you got killed by the Packers twice last year, and you got killed in the playoffs last year when you backed yourself in. But you were able to get to the playoffs by beating the Jaguars and the Texans and those types of crappy teams. So yeah, I mean, the team is built to be middle of the road. And like you said before, it's not like they're a bottom feeder. They haven't been a bottom feeder in years now. It's the John Fox era was the last time they were really bottom feeders. But, what good are you going to do by being just middle of the road mediocre every year? 8-8 the past 2 years. And you're on a path right now where you look like you're going to be in a similar situation right around 500. That's not going to get you anywhere, man. And it's more important than ever to have the right system in place to develop a quarterback, a one of this caliber. And what really irritates me is that we've watched the Bears play the Packers over and over and over. And a common theme in so many of these games is that things look okay early on. And you're thinking, hey, maybe we could pull this out. And then one thing happens, whether it's a misplay, whether it's a miscue, whether it's, a controversial call. One thing happens and everything just goes off the rails. And we've seen that again. Like it doesn't change. And, you don't just say that about Green Bay either. You say that against other good teams. I mean, you remember last year's playoff game? They were in that game in the first half. They had chances. You drop the pass that Trubisky threw to Javon Wims, and then ever since that, everything just fell apart. That's what really irritates me because, again, there was a point in this game where you thought, hey, maybe we can do this. Even if you knew early on when you got stops of the Packers offense, you're thinking, okay, this isn't going to last forever. Eventually they're going to click. But the way you saw them march down the field in the first drive, you're thinking, maybe if Justin Fields can keep throwing like this and, they're able to get open and mix in the run efficiently and they're able to call good plays, that you can match them by moving the ball down the field yourself. And then just everything fell apart. Everything fell apart.
But I got to ask you is, okay, so I don't know if you watched the Cowboys Patriots game that just ended a few minutes ago.
I just saw the very end.
If you watch the game is all game long, there was wide receivers that were schemed open. They were hit where they could get yards after the catch.
Mm-hmm.
And it was exemplified at the end of the game where you saw multiple CD Lamb catches, including the touchdown that won the game, the touchdown where the Patriots got the lead late in the fourth quarter, that you're getting yards after the catch because guys are open and they're throwing the ball in route. Watch the Bears. That is not their scheme. Their scheme is they catch when on curl routes, and there's no yards after the catch.
No, there rarely is.
And a guy has somebody even on deep plays, it's guys draped over them. They make the catch. It's a contested catch. That is the scheme. And this is a Andy Reid offense. This comes from the Andy Reid tree. And look what's happening with the Andy Reid offense with a Hall of Fame level quarterback, a Hall of Fame level tight end, a Hall of Fame level receiver, and a rebuilt offensive line. They're still struggling because the Bears don't have, maybe Justin Fields gets to a Pat Mahomes level. I don't know, maybe, but right now he's not there.
No.
Cole Kmet is not at the same level as the Kansas City's tight end. The Bears don't have anybody like Tyreek Hill. And So they're trying to run that same offense that's struggling because everybody knows how to play it now. And the Bears can't execute it. And so at some point, you just got to say that this is not working. We need, I at least appreciate Bill Lazor because he's trying to run the ball, but still within the framework of this offense, there needs to be more screen passes. They don't do them at all. No screen passes. Give Justin Fields confidence. Let him build up some plays. Give him options. Give him safety nets. He has none. There's no dump offs. I'm going to tell you a fact is Pat Mahomes dumped so many balls off that keep drives alive that allow him to throw those big plays. And those aren't built into the Bears offense. They just don't have those level of dump offs. And when they do, it's the guy is just behind the pass rushers, and you've got to throw a high arcer that ends up hitting the ground, like today with Herbert. Like the scheme is so fucking bad. I just livid, and this team is going nowhere with Matt Nagy, and they need to rebuild this offense. And you're not going to teach a whole new playbook mid-year, but you know what? You can tweak plays that you have to build in some better functionality. And it's not going to happen with Matt Nagy because he's so stubborn and so stupid. And that's a bad combination in any job.
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to beat an elite team like that scoring only 14 points.
No, you're
just not.
And your defense did an admirable job. You held arguably the best wide receiver in football to 4 catches. You held them down pretty well. And
I will say this about the defense. The one thing they struggled with is they let up a lot of big run plays today. And you know what? Part of me thinks that was just part of the Packers' game plan. Even though the Bears have been good at stopping the run, the Bears' defense has been good at stopping the run. I mean, they were able to break off some really big runs, and they knew that Devontae Adams was going to be, for the most part, well covered, and the Packers were able to execute that.
But if you were to tell me that the Bears could hold the Packers to 20 points and they would be without both of their starting cornerbacks, I'd be like, okay, I feel confident we're winning this game. If you can't score more than 20 points against backup cornerbacks, then you're fucked. And you're right. The schedule does not get easier. Next week, we have the Buccaneers. Then the week after that, the 49ers. Now that's a potential. I mean, they're a good team, but at least there's some hope because they don't have an elite passer. The week after, they've got the Steelers, who depends on, they're a Jekyll and Hyde team. There's some weeks this year that they have looked like poop, and some weeks they look like freight train. And I have a feeling that because that game's a Monday night game, I have a feeling we're going to get the freight train. Last week I called the Ravens that's tier 2, and I am full of shit because I watched part of that game today, and they demolished the Chargers.
They look good, man. They look good.
You've got the Ravens, and then it's Thanksgiving. You get the Lions. And that's not until you get to the Lions where you are not going to be favored in a single one of those games until Thanksgiving.
No, you're not. You're not. Not at all.
We're in the middle of October, and you're not going to be favored until Thanksgiving. And then after that, you get the Cardinals and the Packers.
Yep.
Your season ends, you'll probably stack up a few wins. You get the Vikings twice, you get the Seahawks, the Giants. But by that point, you're floundering. You're not going to make the playoffs.
But you can look at it, you can look at this a whole different perspective too. It might be a good thing that this schedule is really tough because it could actually show brass what this team is really made out of. If you somehow are able to rebound and compete, maybe say, you know what, we were able to adjust and actually try to make things work. That's good. And if not, if you just totally suck ass down the road, then you know what, it might be enough to say, time for some new changes.
I mean, honestly, it's the Lions could be the one thing standing in the way of a 2, 3, 4, 5, an 8-game losing streak.
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, look at it. Is they lost today, so that's 1.
Yeah.
The Buccaneers 2, 49ers 3, Steelers 4, Ravens 5. If they lose to the Lions, that's 6, Cardinals 7, Packers 8. So literally, if you don't beat the Lions, there's a strong possibility that you lose 8 in a row. Can Matt Nagy survive back-to-back seasons with 6+ game losing streaks?
I would hope not, considering that would pretty much demolish everything, any hope of this season, obviously.
I mean, how much collaborating needs to be done to overcome that?
So much collaborating. So much collaborating. And, I'm going to say this too, regarding last year with the 6-game losing streak and then finishing 8-8 and backing into the playoffs. We remember too that outside the week 17, they had a Candyland schedule the rest of the season. This season, you have maybe 2 or 3 more games where you point at and say, yeah, we're definitely going to win that. I'm talking about the Giants. I'm talking about the Lions. And depending on what happens with Russell Wilson, I don't remember exactly what his timetable is, but timetables can get tricky. You never know. If they play a Russell Wilson-less Seahawks, then maybe that. But other than that, this schedule does not let up. And I know some people could be like, well, you have to still play the Vikings twice. The Vikings are playing a hell lot better recently, and Kirk Cousins looks pretty good. So they're not going to be a team that's going to be a guaranteed win either.
No, absolutely not. I don't think they're very good, but they're not the Lions either.
No. I'm not saying the Vikings are going to be Super Bowl contenders by any means. I just don't think that they're going to be the team that's going to lie down and just, shrivel up and die. I think they're going to be a tough competition, especially if Kirk Cousins continues to throw well. But what I just wish we could get, I wish we could just get that game where start to finish, everything works offensively, and you put up 34 plus points, and you have a nice run of continuous scoring or deep drives. Because even in the game against the Raiders, in the middle of the game there, the offense stalled. After moving the ball decently with the run game, it stalled again. And then it picked up towards the end of the game and closed the game out when you needed to, but you kind of had to grind your way to that. I want to see that game where Justin Fields could throw for 300 plus yards, multiple touchdown passes. I know we got multiple. I think it was 1 touchdown, 1 interception today. Yeah, because the other was a Khalil Herbert run. But yeah, so to my original point, you get multiple touchdown passes from Justin Fields, 300 plus yards, 30 plus points, and you felt like you were just on the field most of the time because you were moving the ball consistently and getting points. I just want to see that. And the way things started today, the first drive and a half, I thought maybe we were going to see that. I really did. And then to see just all collapse like that was so frustrating. It was so irritating. And I let myself get super bothered, super pissed off about a game I pretty much knew we were going to lose regardless. For multiple reasons, obviously. You want me to be completely honest with you? Middle of the third quarter, I turned it off and I went outside. I couldn't do it. I was just getting so angry.
You missed one good drive by Justin Fields late in the game, but other than that, and you didn't miss anything. But here's something. Matt Nagy's offense has averaged 20.46 points per game across his entire time with the Bears. If you take out 2018, it drops to 18.94.
You're not going to win in this modern NFL like that.
John Fox averaged 17.29.
Oh my God.
So we are like a point and some change better than John Fox is. And we've drove John Fox out of here on a catapult, or, you know, on the van that Big Dave talks about. Is we sent him packing. Is when do we send Matt Nagy packing? He's given so many breaks. I have a lot of bones to pick with Ryan Pace, but there is talent on this team.
Of course. Yeah, absolutely.
Ryan Pace does some good things, does a lot of bad things too. Ryan Pace, I think, would be not so bad if he had somebody above him to be able to stop him from doing dumb things. And mismanaging the cap and
right,
things like that, and
right,
putting him in check about some of the trades. I think he's a good talent evaluator. We've seen, outside of first round picks, we've seen him be pretty darn good, especially with the later picks. And we are not getting the chance to see what this key team could look like with a real head coach. But you know what? The fact remains is you couldn't pin John Fox totally on Ryan Pace. He was sort of handed him by Ernie Accorsi and the ownership.
Yeah, but John Fox, I always saw, was more of a McCaskey thing.
Yeah, but Matt Nagy was 100% his hire.
Mm-hmm.
Do you give him a shot to hire his third head coach?
I don't think you can. I don't think you can.
I don't think so either. The only way I would is if you bring in a president of football operations that is a football person above Ryan Pace, and he goes, you know what? I want to give this guy another opportunity, but it doesn't link you, your general manager and your head coach, because you have president of football operations where he could pull the trigger and fire your GM, but maintain your head coach if he thinks he was the right head coach call.
Sure.
So if you bring in Brian Daboll and you think he's a good coach, and but you're like, you know what, we gave one more opportunity to Ryan Pace, that would be the only way. If you're not going to do that, then Ryan Pace has to be gone. Matt Nagy has to be gone. And honestly, if I'm Ryan Pace and I have any hope of job security, I fire Matt Nagy right now, to be honest with you. He is sinking this whole ship, and you are going to go down with the Titanic. And you may deserve it, you may not, but if you have any chance of saving your job, you jettison him and you go with an interim head coach for the rest of the year.
Yeah, I mean, I don't expect that to happen, obviously, but I don't disagree with you on that. And here's going back to the whole John Fox thing. Keep this in mind too. John Fox barely averaged less than you did now. He did that with way less talent. I mean, was John Fox the ideal coach for the time for the Bears? No. Did he really have much to work with? No. I mean, you remember John Fox, when he came in, it was like the last full year of Cutler, and Cutler actually had a decent year that year because that was Adam Gase. But yeah, sure, you had Zach Miller, but I mean, you remember when like Cameron Meredith was their best wide receiver, and you had passes being thrown by Matt Barkley and Brian Hoyer? I mean, think about that. You had that under John Fox, and with Matt Nagy, you had what you thought was going to be your future quarterback in Mitch Trubisky, Allen Robinson, Darnell Mooney, Jordan Howard, David Montgomery, Tariq Cohen, Jimmy Graham, and others. I mean, just think about that. The talent now in the past few years on the offensive side, is it elite as a whole unit? No, but it's night and day better than what was on the John Fox teams, and yet barely better than him in terms of point production. I mean, what does that tell you? Yeah. You summed it up. You summed it up well right there.
I'm just fed up.
I know.
It's a disaster. This whole but you know, I want to go back to a point you had earlier about the officiating.
Yeah.
And does the officiating change the outcome of this game? Probably not. But it was atrocious. It was atrocious. There was the one interception that Justin Fields threw. That was a neutral zone infraction that was missed, and he saw it, and he said to himself, "I've been taught to go deep, try to hit it," and it wasn't a good throw on his part. But it was also the second time in that game that Allen Robinson gave up on a route, and both of them were picked off. Well, one ended up being an interception. The other one ended up being the defensive back stepped out of bounds, but that's twice. He stopped on the route. And, you know, I think Justin Fields, his flaw on that was maybe look for the flag, but I can't say how hard it is to see the flag at that point, or you just sort of know, but that was a horrible miss. My criticism of Fields on that is you don't have to throw a touchdown on it. You could just get a deep play. You don't have to
throw a Hail Mary.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be a Hail Mary. If you throw a 30-yard pass, there you go. That's better than the 5 yards you were going to get. Anything better than 5 yards is a net plus. So, you know, sure, go deep, but you don't have to go for broke if there's nothing there. Throw something that's a 50-50 ball, or even, you know, 70-30, something, because an interception then doesn't matter, but at least throw it with some possibility that your guy's going to catch it, to make it worthwhile.
Right.
But that was a completely missed play. The touchdown that was called back because of holding, that was a bogus call. The fact that Mario Edwards Jr. got a taunting call for pointing at Aaron Rodgers, but Aaron Rodgers didn't get anything for grabbing his face mask.
He grabbed his face mask.
That wasn't given. And the fact that the tight end for the Packers didn't get anything for getting in the face and tapping the helmet of a Bears player after a play was over. It's completely bogus. The officiating was awful. There was multiple blatant holds that were missed. The pass interference on Jalen Johnson was bogus. Yeah.
You want to know the call that just dumbfounded me? Do you remember in the third quarter when they stopped him short 3 yards and they just gave him a first down?
Yeah, that was bad.
That's when I turned it off. I'm like, fuck this shit. I'm out.
Yeah, they just like, oh, he's short. There, first down. And you know, that reminded me, there's another play, and I didn't actually see this. I had to go pick up my daughter from ballet, so I was listening on the radio. But there was a play where the Bears felt the Packers were short, on third down, and Matt Nagy, instead of just throwing the challenge flag, he called a timeout and then challenged it. So he wasted 2 timeouts when he could have just thrown the flag.
Well, at least he got the challenge one back. But yeah, I know what you mean. The other thing too about that challenge was it ended up being 4th and inches, and you pretty much knew they were just going to QB sneak it and get an easy first down. So it's like, what's the point?
Yeah, it's if it's 4th down, you go, but 3rd down in inches, the Packers, you have to assume they're going to get it and don't waste your time. But the Bears are so inept, and Matt Nagy, he's supposed to be focusing on those things now, like focus on challenges and focused on being a better head coach now that he's not calling the plays. But you know what? I think he's still, sticking his grubby hands in theirs. Look at that 1st and goal before the first touchdown. What play did they run on 1st and goal from the 2?
Oh yeah.
Or the 1.
Whatever that thing was. I'm like, was that really necessary?
They ran a bunch formation and then tried to throw it to the back man and into the end zone, and everybody saw it coming, and they lost yardage. And then immediately they went to a power formation and ran it behind Khalil Herbert, who looked great, and they got a touchdown.
Could have just done that the first time.
That's what they should have done the first time.
They were trying to be tricky. They were trying to play chess for just no reason.
Matt Nagy would rather be cute than good. And there's no identity of a good NFL team that's cute. It's your identity is you are a high octane offense. You're a power running offense. You have
playmakers.
You're a staunch defense that doesn't turn the ball over. Those are identities. Is being cute and running trick plays. That's not an identity. That is dog shit. That's Madden NFL football. Play that on your Xbox. Don't play that in the NFL.
Well, I'll tell you what really, really grinded my gears, and I felt like this was the game. So it's in a weird way, but the end of the first half, you know what I'm talking about, right?
Oh my God, the mismanagement of the end of the first half was abysmal.
Terrible. It just, you looked like you were going to get well in the field goal range. You kick the field goal, you're tied 10-10. You get the ball back to start the half. You're probably feeling a lot better. But you ended up going backwards when you were it was 1 step forward, 2 steps back right there. Look, we could bitch more about the refs about not calling a timeout when Fields was literally trying to get a timeout. But the fact that they were trying to get a playoff and yet you were going to have to burn a timeout because you weren't in sync again, what does that tell you?
Is you came out on an official review not ready to go with your play.
When all you needed was yards.
That is literally the Matt Nagyest thing that Matt Nagy's ever done.
All you need is to fucking get yards and move forward.
And that is why that and the 1st and goal play 100% make me think that Matt Nagy's tinkering in the actual play calling, because those are not hallmarks of Bill Lazor. And I keep reminding everybody, when I talk about Bill Lazor, I'm not talking about him like he's the goddamn savior and the Messiah. It is because he's a competent coordinator in the NFL, and he's a middle of the road offensive coordinator. But Matt Nagy is so awful that it's just like, you know what? It's like you're drowning. And is it better to drown or to come up for air? But your air is all of your friends farting in your face, and you got to breathe the fart air. You're like, well, it's not that I like fart air, but I'd rather breathe fart air than drown. And that's what happens is Matt Nagy is so bad that we go, oh, Bill Lazor is at least a competent adult in the room, and he's not going to be cutesy. And Matt Nagy pulls out his cutesy routine, and then Matt Nagy is hallmark is can't get a goddamn play in, and you wind up with burning timeouts or getting delay of games. And sure, the ref missed the timeout, and but why wasn't the play in? Why weren't they ready to go? And a lot of times people are like, oh, why didn't Justin Fields do this or Justin Fields do that? Matt Nagy told you Justin Fields is not being given the option to audible anything. Is at best there's an RPO, but there's no audibles.
Which pisses me off.
There's no audibles in there. Justin Fields is not given that. If that play is going to blow up, he's either got to call a timeout or just the play blows up. Period. That's what happens.
I mean, can't they see this and say, hey, maybe we need to do a little more changing than just have Bill Lazor call the plays? I mean, can't we do that?
You look at New England. New England's not a good team, but you know what? They're competitive and they're developing their quarterback while they're losing.
Yes.
The Bears are running their quarterback into the ground while they're losing, and then can't figure out why that things are happening that are happening. You know what? You have a terrible head coach that can't win. And people can be like, well, Justin Fields didn't play great. I'm not going to criticize Justin Fields at all until he has an actual NFL offense with an actual NFL coordinator calling the plays without a damn idiot tinkering in things and being a detriment and a dead weight on him. I'm not going to criticize Justin Fields. Period. I'm done. I'm done criticizing Justin Fields until Matt Nagy's gone. And
nothing's going to change.
And nothing's going
to change.
Yeah, I mean, Matt Nagy, you can say, well, Trubisky wasn't his first choice. And you know what? We don't know what Mitch Trubisky would look like. We all blame Mitch Trubisky, and there's some things Mitch Trubisky didn't do well. But what if Mitch Trubisky played for a real head coach? What would Mitch Trubisky look like?
I think he could be decent.
I don't know. I mean, I'm not gonna guess. I'm just gonna say we don't know. But I'm tired of looking. Is he chose the backup Daniel for Trubisky, and he got starts, didn't look good. Trubisky didn't look good. He went out and handpicked Nick Foles. Nick Foles didn't look good. He handpicked Justin Fields, and Justin Fields is having his struggles. He handpicked Andy Dalton, and we don't know. Andy Dalton's not playing, but it's at what point? So sure, he can be like, well, he didn't choose Mitch Trubisky, but he chose every other quarterback that's played in the last 4 years. And at what point do we go, you know what? Maybe it's not the quarterback, it's the whole fucking system. I would have loved to. I kind of wish the Bears would have got Tom Brady, because Tom Brady would have beat the shit out of Matt Nagy on the sidelines and taken play calling from him.
Yeah, I wasn't on the Tom Brady come to the Bears train, but
I wasn't either. But that is my sole reason. Is how do you go? Oh, well, you can't. Tom Brady's the reason that your offense is sputtering. Okay, yeah. I'm tired of there being excuses. Is plain and simple to see. Matt Nagy is the fuck up, and this team may only be an 8-win team, but you know what? Matt Nagy is giving them no hope to win any more than that.
There's one thing that I think Bears brass, the team, has to come away with today. And when it first happened, my blood was boiling. I was just so pissed off. And I mentioned this earlier in the show. But you can maybe turn this into something good. Maybe. Maybe. I'm not counting on it. But if they have any integrity, and if they have any smarts to turn this around, it's this. I want the Bears to print out on a big board, like a big cardboard sign or whatever, put it at Hallis Hall in every room. The picture of Aaron Rodgers saying, "I still own you." Use that taunt as motivation. Use that and say, we got to stop this shit. If you really take Packer Week as seriously as you do, and you have watched them lose year after year after year after year over the past 30 years, Aaron Rodgers is 22-5 against you. Use that as motivation. Use that to try to build yourself up. Try to get something good out of that. Because at first, like I said, my blood was boiling. But I'm like, you know what? He's earned every right to say it. And he's not wrong. And when this happens to you, this has got to be something that motivates you to do better. So don't forget that quote. Play it over and over in your minds, whether you're at practice, whether you're eating dinner, whether you're in bed. Just remember that. Aaron Rodgers will say he respects you. He does not respect you at all. He knows he could just bowl over and smile in your face as he does it every single time. Don't take that. Don't let that happen. Say, you know what? We don't want to hear that anymore. Turn the tide. I know you're not good enough, but at least try to use that and be like, you know what? Let's change this narrative bit.
The one good
Why
thing
not?
is, at most, we're going to face an Aaron Rodgers Packers team one more time.
Please talk me off this ledge, but why do I feel like he's going to be back next year? He's going to decide, you know what? I think I'm going to come back.
He is not. I think there's that bad blood. They agreed to let him go at the end of the season. He's going to be gone. Whether they release him or they trade him, he is not going to be back. Barring an injury where he doesn't play in that next Bears game, the Bears got one opportunity to beat him. And you're right, that should be bulletin board material. And that's true bulletin board material, is he slapped you in the face and disrespected you. I still own you. That's disrespect. I mean, he disrespected you all week long. There's no way I would ever play for the Bears. And then saying this is he is disrespectful, and you got to own him. And honestly, I'm not above cheap shotting him either. Send him a message. Not in our house.
Unfortunately, though, I mean, well, I don't call for anybody to get hurt, but a nice jarring hit that's legal and safe. The problem is he knows he's a quarterback. He's a star quarterback. He's got immunity. The Bears ever tried to, put a big hit on him? Wouldn't matter. They get flagged. He knows there's nothing they can do about it.
Yeah, but you know what? Concussion sends you out.
I wouldn't go that far.
I can't. I hate his stupid guts. I hate his guts. He's just, and what an asshole.
I mean, I do too. I just, I wouldn't wish any physical harm against anybody.
Yeah, but you know what? That's not it's just a concussion. He maybe goes in the protocol for a few plays.
Yeah.
Just a reminder that you're an asshole, and that's why your family hates your guts too.
Wow.
But a few other notes. Jalen Johnson, I think is going to be a stud. He already looks good. I'm very happy with him. We saw good production from both edge rushers and Khalil Mack and Robert Quinn. One position you absolutely need to upgrade from is Sam Mustipher. Is just, I know he tries, and I know we saw a big boost when he came in last year, but he is not good enough, and he's not strong enough, and he's getting beat up every single week, and it's not going to get any better playing against Tampa next week.
Yeah, no kidding.
And from what I'm seeing, it looks like the Bears are opening up with it as a 12.5 point underdog.
Ooh, not great, Bob.
Yeah, that's not the line that you're expecting to see.
Yeah, it doesn't spur too much confidence now, does it?
No. But the good news is the walk-off touchdown from the Cowboys by CeeDee Lamb gave me 59 points for CeeDee Lamb this week, and it looks like I'm on my way to going another win in my fantasy league.
My season's down the toilet. It's down the toilet. I've tried to patchwork all my team with all the injuries I've had. It's just it's a lost cause at this point. I'm going to be 1-5.
Yeah, I had to bench Nick Chubb because he's injured this week, and I'm going to win again.
Bastard.
Yeah, I mean, my team's pretty stacked. Pat Mahomes, CeeDee Lamb, Mike Evans, Matt Stafford, Harrison Butker, Nick Chubb. Yeah, so I'm up by 45 points, and my opponent only has Stephon Diggs and Cole Beasley left. I have Zach Moss and Emmanuel Sanders, and I'm up 45 points. So,
well, I have Emmanuel Sanders, but he's not enough to save me.
Yeah, so it's funny. All 4 players left are Buffalo players.
Oh, there you go.
So my hope is that Denver shuts down the Buffalo offense. I just don't have to worry about it.
Well, we'll see about that one.
But yeah, I mean, next week is Tampa Bay with a 10-day layoff. So and Tom Brady is going to want blood for last year. That guy,
of course.
That guy's as petty as they come. I'm expecting a bloodbath next week.
Oh, it wouldn't surprise me. It would not surprise me at all.
So let's see. The Bears have 3 more games before their bye week. Buccaneers, 49ers, and Steelers. What are the odds that Matt Nagy is the head coach of the Chicago Bears when they play the Ravens on November 21st?
I think the odds are good. They don't fire coaches mid-season. That's just not how the Bears operate.
I don't think so either. But here's the only reason I think it could happen is we know that George McCaskey wouldn't do it.
Right.
Because he's a coward and an idiot. So he's not going to do it. Like, he's just, nope. Because he wouldn't know what to do. But there is a possibility that Ryan Pace does it as a Hail Mary. Can we win some games and save my job? That's my only hope, is that guy's going to try to save his job and throw Matt Nagy under the bus when they sold themselves as a package to the McCaskies.
When you say throw Matt Nagy under a bus, it makes me think of the South Park episode where they're like, oh, what are we going to do? Our plan is going to take it out. We got to throw Eric Cartman under the bus, okay? How do we do that? We get Eric Cartman in a bus, okay? And we throw him under the bus.
Oh, that would be funny, is watching Ryan Pace literally trying to throw Matt Nagy under the team bus while it's driving.
It's pulling out by the field museum.
Like, what are you doing? And he's like, throwing you under the bus. God, idiot.
He rolls his sleeves up to see his macho arms and he just tries to pick him up.
Got some Popeye arms. He squeezes a can of spinach and squirts it in his mouth. He's like, and he tries to throw Matt Nagy under the...
And what ends up happening is he just kind of picks up Matt Nagy and just lightly tosses him against the side of the bus. And Matt Nagy's just like, ow, you a-hole.
He's laying on the ground like Peter Griffin going, ah.
Oh, yeah.
But that's my own. I don't see it happening either. But that's my only hope, is that Ryan Pace sees the writing on the wall and going, you know what? If I don't fire this guy, my job is I'm going to be on the hotter seat, and he shit cans him. And I don't think it happens any sooner than that, because that's just, at least gives your team 2 weeks to right their ship. But I'm just frustrated. I'm just extremely frustrated.
Me too.
We did have, since the last episode, the White Sox did lose to the Houston Astros. And that was a tough series, man. The Astros just had the White Sox numbers. You brought in Tony Larussa to coach this team. In those moments, nothing worked out. Is everybody threw in there. The Astros hitters were, teeing off on them, and the bats just didn't come alive.
I think we have to look from both perspectives regarding the White Sox. As the offseason rolls on and, you make moves and you try to patchwork things, whatever, you'll see, you can look at it from the optimistic eye. The core is still very young. It's going to be back next year. But I think as we're digesting the whole thing right now, I think there are some serious conversations you have to have. And look, I'm going to tell you this right now. You heard me all year. Even though I'm not a White Sox fan, I'm a Cubs fan. I was very, very, very optimistic about this team. And going to this series, I thought, they can match up well. The White Sox have a better pitching staff. Pitching beats good hitting, right? Well, we saw that the Astros offense was just absolutely relentless. And that was only part of the whole situation, the whole issues. The thing is going into the playoffs, my confidence source was that the White Sox talent was going to overcome the constant issues we saw throughout the year. We saw struggles on defense. We saw them struggle hitting cutoff men. We saw them struggle with other fundamentals like base running. We saw them struggle against really good teams. And we saw Tony LaRussa make questionable calls as a manager. And I admittedly just kind of wrote it all off, saying this team is so talented and they're finally healthy for the first time all year that they were going to go in and go on a long run. But unfortunately, what happened is that those very noticeable chinks in the armor just became much more noticeable as the Astros went out and exposed every single flaw and then some in this series. I feel like there were underlying issues with this season that I thought maybe could be masked a little bit by their talent that unfortunately wasn't. And I think you have to talk a little more seriously about what you're going to do with this team going forward and how you're going to fix some of this stuff. Unfortunately, the fundamentals that were supposed to get better did not get better. And you're not going to beat good teams with, bad base running and shaky defense and a bullpen, which was supposed to be lights out this year. Outside Liam Hendricks, they had plenty of struggles. I mean, it's
even with Hendricks.
Sure.
I mean, you're right. It starts with fundamentals, the base running errors, the gaps in fielding, the defense. That's a huge difference between when the Cubs win the World Series and this White Sox team. Is that Cubs team played stellar defense. They were an elite defensive team
and a great base running team.
Yeah, and I mean not super stolen base, but very smart base running, heads up base running.
Exactly. Exactly.
I don't think you need to necessarily steal a bunch of bases, but just being heads up, smart base runners. And but this White Sox team is a bad fielding team. We've known that, and that just starts in spring training. Is all these guys are capable of being at least decent fielders. You have to work on it, and that just wasn't an emphasis. And the White Sox, the end of the season just had so many injuries, and Lance Lynn wasn't the same guy he was for 90% of the season.
None of those starters were.
No.
That's the thing.
And
that's really disappointing, was where the starting pitching was bad all series.
And what you had was, you're like, okay, the Astros won the first two games. And you're like, okay, this is a shitty position to be in because this is a best of 5. They only got to win one more. White Sox win one, and you start feeling confident. You're like, all right, you know what? It's not over yet. Is the White Sox win? The Astros won the first 2 at home. The White Sox win the next 2 at home, and this is a 1-game winner takes all, and
anything can happen.
Anything can happen, and you're like, you feel confident with that first or that 4th game. And the White Sox take a 1-0 lead on the Gavin Sheets home run. And you're like, okay, you have Carlos Rodon going, and you're like, all right, this is it. This is the turning point. The White Sox win. They're on a 2-game win streak. And it comes down to, does the team that just won 2 in a row win it again, or does the home team win it? And then the Astros just flipped the switch, and they chased out Rodon. And then the mistake by Tony Larussa to bring Kopech back in, and he gets lit up, and suddenly you're down big, nobody's hitting, and it's just over at that point. Then they get to Tepera, they get to Kimbrel, they get to Hendricks, and they just run you out of your own building. It sucked. Like, honestly, I'm a Cubs fan, and I was gutted at this. I can't imagine what White Sox fans felt like. I was angry. I felt like the Astros were douchebags in their win. With the hitting batters. And I'm glad to see the Red Sox taking care of business on them.
Well, you know how I talked about Aaron Rodgers and the motivation of this quote? Well, I kind of felt like the Astros got that same motivation from the Ryan Tepera comments. They took those comments and they kind of rammed it down your throat. I mean, even outside that 10-1 final game win, the other 2 wins for the Astros, none of those, the outside of the game the White Sox won, none of those games were competitive. The Astros ended up blowing you out of the water completely. And I mean, to see your season end at home, 10-1 loss, where, like you said, it started off decently. Rodon was throwing some smoke. Gavin Sheets had the home run. And then, bases loaded. Rodon's still in there, throws an 0-2 fastball right over the plate, and it gets smacked. And there are people speculating. I don't really know the details of this, but I heard somebody say that they said they thought that Rodon didn't throw a slider 0-2 because they were not confident that Yasmani Grandal was going to block it, which right there is an issue, obviously, because, Grandal is a great hitter. He is really productive, and he smashed the ball when he came back. And he's a very good pitch framer, but his defense is very shaky. We saw him get benched when he was in LA in playoff games because of those issues, of those defensive issues. So, that right there is, another problem in on its own. And another thing too was it felt like Tony Larussa was saving for game 5. And you don't have a game 5 until you win game 4. So when you're in an elimination scenario and there is that turning point of the game, which came early, that was a turning point with the bases loaded, Rodon still in. You could make the argument, you could say, you know what, Liam Hendricks, we need you. Blow smoke by these guys so we can keep momentum. You can't plan for a game 5 unless you actually get to game 5. And they did not end up getting to game 5.
Yeah, absolutely. Is you in an elimination game, you have to empty all your rounds. You can't leave anything in the tank.
Right. Exactly. The other thing too about this whole thing was that we were counting on this starting staff to take them far. Right? We mentioned
Absolutely.
it earlier a few minutes ago.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it wasn't just Rodon being hurt that was the issue with the starting pitching. Dylan Cease, even though he won that game, did he even go 2 innings? He either went 2 innings or like just over 2 innings, and he gave up 5 runs.
Yeah, Cease didn't go too far. Going back here.
Giolito had a subpar outing, and Lance Lynn had a subpar outing. We were counting on that starting pitching greatly to help them. But nobody could even go halfway through their start.
Cease went 1 2/3.
Right, there you go.
And gave up 3 runs.
So 3 runs he gave up. Okay.
And then Kopech came in for 2 1/3 and gave up 3.
Yeah. You thought that the starting pitching was kind of like 05 was going to help carry you a little bit. Now I know since 05, postseason pitching strategies have changed quite a bit, but still, you went in to this playoff as, I would say, far and away the best pitching staff in the American League, right?
I would say so.
And I mean the Astros, when they needed to just put the ball in play, they needed to put the ball in play. They did. When they needed to pull out the driver, they pulled out the driver. They weren't going up there and hacking away for the fence at every time. They weren't going up there just trying to wait for their pitch. They went up, they attacked, and they made things happen every single time. They were just absolutely relentless. And
absolutely. It's just the contact rate. You're just like, damn, they're just nonstop from up and down the lineup.
That's what you want. That's the type of lineup you want. And here's the question I'm going to ask you, in your opinion.
I think everybody except for their designated hitter had a hit.
Right.
Altuve 3 for 5, Brantley 3 for 6, Bregman 1 for 5, Correa 2 for 4. Everybody had a hit.
Yeah. And sorry, I cut off for a quick second. I was just asking you a question. The question I was going to ask you was going into next year, there are some people that would argue that the White Sox need another high-end starting pitcher. And for a while, I thought, I mean, they seem pretty set, but maybe they do. Because, look, here's one of my concerns. I'm not saying I know this is going to happen. I'm just saying, here's one of my concerns. Do you remember last year? I know 2020 was weird, but you remember last year when Dallas Keuchel was in the running for Cy Young?
Yep.
I don't remember. Did he actually win Cy Young, or did that go to somebody else?
I don't think he won.
But he had like a 199 ER. Like his numbers are really dang good. That's where I'm getting at. And then this year, they completely fell apart. And with Lance Lynn, if you look at his numbers in the second half, they started to dip a little bit. And is there concern that with an older guy like Lance Lynn, that what happened to Dallas Keuchel could happen to him next year? Again, I'm not saying this is going to happen, but is it a concern?
Lance Lynn is not going to give you the performance that he got this year. I don't know what he's going to look like, but I would say it's probably going to be it's going to be better than what Keuchel gave you this year, but
Yeah.
it's going to regress.
I mean, luckily for Lynn is that he throws harder and he misses a few more bats, so that's obviously an advantage.
Yeah, so you're looking at your rotation being Giolito, as of right now, Giolito, Lance Lynn, Dylan Cease, Dallas Keuchel.
And it seems like the plan is to have Crochet and or Kopech join that rotation.
I don't know how you have Crochet do that.
I don't either.
Is Michael Kopech? That's within the realm of possibility because he's played long relief a lot this year. So I think that is reasonable. But you know, does Michael Kopech, do you lose something by Kopech, the weapon he was from coming in middle relief and long relief, losing that to be a starter when you lose Rodon? Is that how are you offsetting that? Is that going to be Tepera? Is Tepera even, or is he a free agent this year?
I'm honestly not sure.
Ryan Tepera contract.
I mean, I think either way, you move one of those guys to the rotation, you're going to have to find other guys. Maybe you have another pitching prospect like Jimmy Lambert or something that's able to come up and do it. I'm not really sure, but I feel like, to me right now, that Michael Kopech has the stuff more to be a starter. My whole thing with Crochet is, yeah, he's got some nasty stuff, but he throws a lot. He's a hard thrower. If he's not throwing quite as hard, we've seen him get hit. And he's mainly like a fastball slider guy from what I've seen. And I just, you might need to develop another pitch or two to work your way into a starting rotation. So I feel like next year, if you don't implement both of them into the rotation, I feel like the chances are higher that Kopech would be moved into the rotation over Crochet at first, at least.
Oh, absolutely. And I looked, Tepera is a free agent after the season ends.
Okay,
so,
there you go.
So you're going to lose him, and you're going to lose Kopech in your bullpen. To try to make him a starter, unless you can bring one of your young players up. I just don't know if you do that as a team that's in the hunt.
Or you sign someone, yeah, I'm not, there's going to have to be something figured out. But speaking of bullpen, one of the biggest topics for the White Sox, especially in this playoffs, uh, is the fate of Craig Kimbrell. And we saw Bob Nightingale, so take it as you will. Though he does have his big White Sox connection, so you might be right on this, that they plan to exercise his option but try to trade him. I'm not sure why that would be reported right away. Um, I mean, can you see that actually happening?
That's a good idea if he plays well, but he played terribly for you. How are you going to get somebody to give you something and pick up the $16 million option?
Right. And I mean, the thing is, 16 million for a reliever, that's not pocket change.
No, I mean, if you're going to pay that, you want somebody elite. And so for somebody to trade for him to pick up that $16 million contract, unless they're planning to pick it up and eat most of it to get the trade value. But what trade value are you getting for him? I think it's a terrible idea.
Yeah, I mean, obviously his value was sky high when the Cubs traded him to him, but I mean, one could say, oh, well, what if it was just a bad stretch? But it's like, his first 2 years with the Cubs were pretty disastrous. And he had that amazing stretch with the Cubs this year, but then he leaves and it was a disaster again, both in the regular season and in the postseason. I mean, Craig Kimbrell was shockingly bad with the White Sox.
I think the guy is, I don't want this to come off wrong. I think it's in his head. I think he's a guy that has to be comfortable in a spot, and it took him a while to get comfortable in Chicago and with the Cubs. And then when he went to the White Sox, just lost it all because he literally was night and day before and after the trade, night and day. And, so if you're a White Sox and if you're going to pay him that $16 million, then you better expect him to be on your roster the whole season, or you're expecting him to turn things around and then you could trade him at the trade deadline. That's a possibility, but to try to trade him early, that's a bad bet.
Yeah.
It's either you better expect him to give you something good and at least get a whole first half out of him.
Yeah, and look, I'm not saying that there might not be a team out there that would bite on Craig Kimbrell in the offseason as long as the White Sox are eating some of that money. I just don't think the return you're going to get is quite what you gave up. I mean, if you're looking for Nick Madrigal and another reliever, you're probably not going to get that at this point with just the way the value just decreased over those last few months. I just, the whole thing is kind of goofy. I mean, unless the White Sox try to trade him and they're not finding the right deal and they just decide, you know what, we're just going to take a gamble. We're going to pay him the $16 million and we're going to just pray that he figures it out again.
I mean, the thing is the White Sox have so much money that they could spend. It's not hurting them to pick that up and hope. It's maybe the way they look at it is that it's guaranteed. It's 1 year, 16 million. And who else? And if he becomes the guy that pitched for the Cubs last year, then you are in an awesome position. And if he doesn't, then cost you $16 million and it's 1 year and done. You could even try to dump him at the trade deadline for a bag of balls, but some salary cap relief. But if you are going to pick him up, I think picking him up in the hopes of trading him is a terrible idea. Picking him up with the hope that if you expect him to be good, then I'm fine with it. That's what your expectation is, even if you're hoping he's going to be good so you could trade him at trade deadline, or you're expecting him to help you, you have to have the expectation he's going to be good to pick up that $16 million option.
Yeah. It was, as someone who watched him dominate on the north side, it really was shocking to see how badly he struggled on the south side. I mean, I know a lot of people say, well, he's locked in as a ninth inning guy. And maybe I don't understand. Maybe I'm not right to judge, so to speak. But, I just thought, you're a big time reliever with big time stuff. Whether it's the 7th, the 8th, the 9th, just go out there and get outs. And it didn't happen. It just didn't happen. And I know there's a lot of mixed feelings now. Should they have made the trade? Should they not have? I mean, in hindsight, you look and say, when they made the trade at the time, you were getting arguably the most nasty back end bullpen in baseball. But other people would say Kimbrel's better as a closer. We already have an all-star closer in Liam Hendricks.
That was a Tony Larussa mistake. You have a Hall of Fame level closer, and Liam Hendricks is a guy that likes to go multiple innings. Why don't you flip-flop them and have Kimbrel be your closer? And they didn't, and that's on Tony LaRussa,
who's going to be back next year. Seems
probably
pretty obvious.
I don't, unless the whim of emperor of the organization decides otherwise. Yeah, he'll be back.
I mean, when that game ended and people said, what's the future for Tony LaRussa? I thought the answer was pretty obvious before Tony even tried to wiggle his way around it by saying, if the players want me back, then I'll be back. I mean, we all know that if he says the players want me back and the media is going to ask the players questions, of course they're going to endorse Tony LaRussa. They're not going to say, you know what, I don't want Tony LaRussa as my manager. He stinks. Screw it. They're not going to say that. What we knew in reality was if Tony LaRussa wanted to keep managing, he was going to. From what it sounds like, he's signed a 3-year deal that's based on what we've heard, and his job is safe unless he decided to retire. The only way Tony LaRussa wasn't going to manage next year is if he decided to call it quits again. And, there was part of me wondering in the 9th inning of their final game when they were on the brink of elimination, I'm thinking, man, what's going to happen? Is Tony LaRussa just going to say, you know what? I came back for a year, tried to prove something. I made it to the 2nd overall spot in manager wins. I won a division title. I didn't get a World Series, but you know what? It was fun coming back while I had it. I'm going to retire again. But it clearly looks like he wants to keep managing. And yeah, I mean, for now, you got to count on Tony LaRussa being back next year.
Yeah. And, just putting this on the universe, and I'm not saying that this has a different outcome, but you could have had AJ Hinch, and you saw what a night and day difference he turned around that Tigers team.
Yeah.
It made them from a joke to a competitive team.
Yeah. And I mean, some of their best prospects aren't even up yet.
That was just a terrible thing. But that's your owner decided, so that's how it is.
And I think what we take at the end of the day with this whole thing with the White Sox is we know the window is still wide open. We understand that. And we're not saying that this playoff exit just dooms everything. It's just really disappointing that it felt like you wasted a year of your prime window, and you don't want to do that. Even if you have plenty of years of your prime window left,
the window is never as big as you think it is.
Yeah, I mean, consider this. The White Sox are going to go into next season, no matter what happens with the rest of the teams, as the clear-cut favorites. And unless there are some catastrophic things that happen, I truly believe the White Sox are going to win the division again next year. With that said, it's most likely not going to be this easy again. I mean, you had this division won since the first month of the season. I think that at least next year, you can expect other teams to put up a fight. No one's just going to roll over and die like the entire division did this year. I mean, it's way too early to tell. Would I expect at this point the White Sox to win the division again next year? Absolutely. Do I think it's going to be an absolute sheer clear-cut cakewalk all year like it was this year? Probably not. The Tigers are going to get better, and I think Cleveland is going to get better. And while the Royals won't be contenders yet, I don't think next year, they got some big-time prospects that are going to be coming up. And the Royals, the White Sox struggled against the Royals. So the window is still open. We know that. The White Sox very well could be much better next year than they were this year. And this year, despite injuries, despite some adversity, they won 93 games in a division title, and we can't really take that away from them. And I think on paper, they could be even better next year. I am just saying that this opportunity was as handed to you on a platter as you can get. You didn't have to worry about the playoff race for 1 second. No team came anywhere close to you. And next year, I just don't think it's going to be as easy as it was this year.
I'm looking at the best available starting pitchers in coming off season. Max Scherzer, obviously the best. Robbie Ray, Kevin Gausman, Marcus Stroman, Carlos Rodon, Noah Syndergaard, Eduardo Rodriguez, Clayton Kershaw. Which one of those guys is worth the big time money for your rotation that you could actually get?
Well, Marcus Stroman made it pretty clear he doesn't want to play with Tony Larussa.
Yep.
Max Scherzer, if you want him, you're going to have to, if you were to get him, say, on a 2-year deal, you're going to have to pay up for that. Jerry Reinsdorf's just going to have to pay up for that.
They won't. Robbie Ray is going to get stupid money.
Yeah, he's probably going to get way overpaid, honestly.
Oh, yeah. I don't know what his long-term outcome is. I mean,
I think he's a good pitcher, but he's going to get crazy money.
Oh, yeah. But I mean, he was just signed last year on a 1-year, $8 million deal. So it's not like the expectation was he was going to be what he was. Kershaw's injury plagued the last few years and is 35. I mean, out of all those, it's probably Rodon or bust.
I don't think Rodon's coming back.
I don't think so either.
Did you hear his parting words?
No.
I'll see if I can try to find it, but long story short, it sounded like a man that was saying goodbye.
Oh, I mean, they jettisoned him off, and he $3 million this year?
Yeah, I mean, wasn't it a minor league deal?
No, I don't think so. But it was
Maybe
a
not.
1 year, $3 million deal, I think.
Okay. Yeah. They didn't tender him a contract, and then they
Right.
decided to re-sign him.
Yes.
That's what it was. Yeah, it wasn't a minor league deal. I know he had scouts watching him. Both the Cubs and White Sox were obviously keeping an eye on him. Yeah, I don't have the quotes in front of me, but if you listen to what he said in the post-game presser of Game 4, he pretty much stated that. He wasn't saying I'm gone, goodbye, but he was saying, I want to thank the White Sox fans and the White Sox organization for this run, stuff like that. It just, the tone and the way he said it just very much sounded like he was saying goodbye.
I mean, he wants to get paid and he knows this team is cheap.
The other thing too is with Rodon, he's got all the talent in the world. All the talent in the world, but full season. And he's been in the league since 2015.
Yeah.
So you're getting high risk, high reward with him.
What about a 1-year tender, like a 1-year flyer on a Noah Syndergaard?
I mean, there's potential reward there.
That guy at one time looked like he was going to be the best pitcher in baseball.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
And he got the injury bug.
But part of me thinks it might be worth it. The other part of me thinks, well, what scares me about that a little bit is you're taking a flyer in the middle of a window, and it could pay off or it could be disastrous.
But it depends on how much it is. Is all right. Let's say 1 year, $8 million, $10 million, probably $10 million.
Yeah, if you're not spending too much, I think my point is don't rely on that being the solution. Have other fallbacks in case that doesn't work, is what I'm trying to get at.
Oh, I mean, what I'm saying is you go in, Giolito, Keuchel, Lynn, who's your last? Who am I missing? Cease. You've got your 4 spots. So then it comes down to that 5th spot is, you've got Reynaldo Lopez. You've got minor league guys that are coming at training camp or spring training. You'll have Kopech in the mix, and he would just be in the mix. And he's got to compete for that 5th spot. You're a team that has a low payroll. Like, you can take those opportunities. It's a risk reward thing where you're like, you know what? It's money. And if he does well, then we look like geniuses. If he doesn't do well, you know what? Who cares? We put him in the bullpen.
Yeah, maybe. Might be worth a shot. I definitely see upside if it were to work, and if not, then hopefully you'd have other fallbacks to make sure that that wasn't your only proposed solution. I think if we're digesting a lot of this going into the off season, what you would hope for is that Jerry would be willing to spend a little more, because you kind of learned from this year, the way it ended, you learned that you have opportunities to bulletproof your team. You need to take advantage of that. I mean, they could have had Michael Brantley. They could have had better solutions to fill your holes that you had going into this year. And instead, you just went out and said, oh, we'll just sign Adam Meaton again. And look how that turned out. You could have really bulletproofed your lineup by going out and getting some more thunder in your lineup by getting a Michael Brantley or a Nelson Cruz. You could have done more in the offseason. And you shouldn't have a satisfaction bar. Be like, oh, well, if we just spend a little money in right field with, old washed up Pudwack, Adam Meaton, we'll be fine. You have the opportunity to make your team as good as possible. Go out and do it.
That was the downfall last year. They didn't do it. We beat them up for it, and things didn't work out. They won the division with running it away, and the postseason didn't turn out as they'd hoped.
No, No. And we won't deny that we were very optimistic about this team, especially me. And I felt like I was more optimistic than some of my White Sox fan buddies. Cause like I'm like, oh, you guys could beat the Astros, and they're like, I don't know. And then when they were down 0-2, they're like, yeah, we're losing this series. I'm like, oh well, if you win, it's early, you still win these 2 home games. They're like, I don't know. And all the concerns that they had all year, they showed their ugly faces, unfortunately. And what you hope for if you're a White Sox fan next year, at the very least, is that they can clean up some of the fundamentals and they're able to fix the holes on the team with proven talent and not trying to take flyers or trying to patchwork it with guys with little experience. I mean, if this was 2 years ago and you're trying to find out what you have and you're not quite contenders yet, then yeah, use it as a learning experience, use it as a way to see what you have. But you're at the point now where you're in the middle of your window. Do what you need to do to make it work and to make the highest chances possible of you getting a trophy. I mean, that's where you're at now. And look, Rick Hahn in season traded for an elite reliever. It just didn't work. Nick Magical went down, and he obviously was in the Kimbrel trade, and he went out and got Cesar Hernandez. And that was really disappointing too. But, again, at the time, it looked like it was a solid move. So I just think there's going to have to be a lot of evaluating done of what's gone wrong and what needs to be fixed. And, they got to take a long look and say, we got to fix this with quality stuff. We can't just cheapen out again.
It's getting a little late. I want to wrap this up with talking about the Blackhawks. You're probably groaning right now going, oh God, this team. The Blackhawks are 3 games into the regular season and they have looked terrible. I get the first game. I'm like, okay, they're playing Colorado. Colorado is arguably the best team in hockey. And that first period was, they looked like they had no idea what to expect or what was going on. And then you're like, okay, well, they shorted up a little bit. They give up 1 goal the rest of the game and they score in the third period. Like, was that Colorado taking their foot off the gas, or did the Blackhawks start figuring it out? You're like, I don't want to jump to conclusions based on 1 game against one of the best teams in hockey. And then game 2 happened, game 3 happened, and they just look bad.
Oh, the Pittsburgh game was, I turned it off within 10 minutes. I couldn't even watch it.
It wasn't, you're like, okay, they got creamed by Pittsburgh, but it was Pittsburgh without Malkin, without Crosby, without Rust. It was a depleted Pittsburgh team, and they got bamboozled. They got beat worse than by Colorado.
Yeah, it's just flat ugly. I mean, this team, they're just all over the place. No identity with this team. It just looks bad.
The Blackhawks have been playing from behind in over 87% of the minutes of these games so far.
That's brutal. They haven't had a lead yet.
No, they have not had a single lead yet. It's at some points they were tied. But they gave up a goal 17 seconds into the game against New Jersey. And you're like, oh, you can't get any worse than that. And then until Pittsburgh, when they gave up a goal 15 seconds into the game.
Yeah, quite bad. Quite bad.
You're against Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh, again, minus Crosby, minus Malkin, is in the first period. You had 5 shot attempts, 3 shots on goal, 2 scoring opportunities. You're like, okay, well, let's compare that. What did Pittsburgh do? Pittsburgh had 24 shot attempts, 24 versus 5, 13 shots on goal versus 3, and 15 scoring opportunities versus 4. And the score after that period was 4-0. You were already out of the game.
And that's the problem too, is even if you're confident the Blackhawks scoring could get better, it's really hard to score a lot of goals when you're constantly chasing the puck and you're down multiple goals early on.
Yeah. And in the first, if you combined the first 3 periods or the first period of the 3 games I've played so far, they're being outscored 8-1 and being outshot 38-17.
Yeah. Not good. Not good.
The odd man rushes, you had 5 odd man rushes from Colorado in the Colorado game, 6 New Jersey, and 11 from Pittsburgh. You've only scored 2 5-on-5 goals this season in 3 games. The special teams look okay, but 5-on-5, you look terrible. It's, you gave Quenneville, 15 games into his last season with the Blackhawks before you canned him?
Mm-hmm.
How many games did who was the coach before
For Quenneville?
Yeah.
That was Savard.
How many games did he get in his last season?
Only a few.
Is when do we honestly expect them to go, shit, Jeremy Colleton's terrible, we got to fire him?
Well, you remember Danny Wirtz, the new CEO of the Blackhawks, promoted Stan Bowman.
It's true.
I don't think it feels like we're dealing with the Bears here. Mediocrity is acceptable. And Jeremy Colleton, while there were stretches where the Blackhawks teams were playing well over the past few years, overall, it's been as a whole, they've been about a 500 team, right in the middle, mediocre.
But this, you went out and you got a Hall of Fame level goalie. You spent a shit ton of money on a top defenseman and traded for him.
Yes.
And you've got, forwards who can score the yin yang. And this is supposed to be a playoff team. This is supposed to be a playoff team. And you know what? I can accept losses to Colorado, but a depleted Pittsburgh team, New Jersey, you look bad. You looked outmatched.
Yeah, and look, I think there needs to be changes. I think there needs to be changes right away. I'm just not counting on it. And you know what? The NHL is a league where coaches and GMs and front office members, it's a constant rotating door in hockey because tolerance for unsuccessful runs is very, very little, very, very small in this league. We've seen coaches get fired for a lot less. And, Colleton, like I said, while he's had moments, I just feel like he wasn't ready for a full-time NHL coaching gig yet. And I think the Blackhawks need to send a serious message and be like, you know what? If we still care about winning, we need to make a change. Because it'd be one thing if you lost to Colorado in overtime, or you lost to them like 4-3 and it was a close game, and Pittsburgh was a close game. You were 3 games in and, you didn't have the best record, but at least you played. These weren't competitive games. I mean, this looked like an NHL team playing an AHL team.
They look outmatched. You have trouble entering the zone. You're giving up odd man rushes. Your defense looks discombobulated. Your prized trade / big money signing, Seth Jones, talks about how he's not playing well. At what point do you just go, you know what? Things are not working.
Yeah, this can't continue. You can't keep playing like this. I know it was a brutal start to the season, but still.
It's been brutal, and I just don't think that I don't think Jeremy Colleton is the answer.
No, I think you need to make some adjustments at some point, and I don't know what's going to happen over the next few weeks. If they continue to play like this, then I mean, really, something needs to happen soon.
Oh yeah,
like you are clearly not on the same level as other teams.
You know, you went out and you brought in Marc-Andre Fleury, and you already pull him from one game. And if you're gonna stink, you should trade the guy. Give him the opportunity to play elsewhere. Trade him and develop your young goalies. Is the only reason you have a Marc-Andre Fleury is if you're trying to make the playoffs.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I know there's a long way to go in this season, but the way things are looking right now, I don't see any way how this is a playoff team. I mean, again, there's a long way to go. Maybe you find something, maybe you find your niche, but this team is all over the place.
I mean, you have less wins than the Kraken.
Yarg.
Ugh. So at least we know one thing. They're playing the Islanders on Tuesday, and neither team has won. Somebody's got to get a win.
And they're at home. They finally get to play at the United Center.
Yeah, so it's a disaster of a road trip. I don't know how long of a leash that Colleton has. But it's got to be pretty short. It's got to be.
Yeah, it has to be. It just has to. If they're serious about winning, it has to be.
But I guess the last but certainly not least, is today we finally have a champion in Chicago.
Yes, we do, baby. Yes, we do.
Congratulations to the Chicago Sky. That's huge win today against the Mercury to win the WNBA finals. It's big for that organization. It's nice for the city, and I wonder what they're going to do to celebrate.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll hear about it soon, but what a historic run. 16-16 in the regular season, and you go all the way and you win it all. And in this particular game, in the clincher, not only was it great that you won at home, but you won at home in front of a full house. Both of these home games were completely packed, and seeing the city embrace them, seeing all the other sports teams tweet about them or, post on Instagram about them, showing their support. You had all sorts of celebrities at these games. And again, shout out to my good buddy, Eric, season ticket holder, sits courtside. He's been a season ticket holder for years. I texted him when they won, and he texted me back a few hours later, like how he was still trying to process the whole thing. Like, this was pretty emotional for him, like an emotional ride for this team. And how fitting was it to see Candace Parker get that final rebound off the boards that just where the game ended? It felt so fitting. The star comes home, she wins a championship for her team, and she gets that final rebound to seal the deal as the place goes crazy. The guys on ESPN were going crazy. The call, if you listen to the final call of the fadeaway moment, it was great. Everything about this story is fantastic. And really, really fun to just follow this team. Watching people like Vandersloot and Allie Quigley, they're talented players, very determined at what they were doing. And I just loved the way they were embraced because, my brother, he interned for the Sky back in 2010. And back then, the WNBA, barely anybody really knew about the Chicago Sky. And we went to a few of the games when they played at the Allstate and hardly anybody showed up. And now they're playing at Wintrust Arena. They're selling out the arena. They're on ESPN. All the other teams in town are talking about them. Celebrities are at the games. Like, it's so cool to see how far they've come since then.
Yeah. So it's fantastic. I hope they get the recognition they deserve. I got to see what the plans are. I haven't seen anything yet, but I think it's important for my daughter to see. So I will probably try to take her down to whatever event that they have. So she can see it all and take it all in.
Mm-hmm.
I think that'll be really neat.
Yeah, absolutely. I also wonder this too, if they're going to have some sort of a rally, and I would think that maybe they try to do it outside. I'm not completely sure, but would that be maybe in one of the parks? Like Grant Park, would that be at some other venue, or would they do it at Wintrust Arena?
Oh, wait,
I don't know.
I'm looking. So NBC5 Chicago, a rally this is an hour ago. So
okay.
during the recording here, a rally will take place to commemorate the Chicago Sky's first ever WNBA championship win. Lori Lightfoot revealed Sunday. The mayor didn't provide additional information, but in a tweet, she said, "Coming soon, stay tuned."
Okay.
There's going to be a rally.
And it's good they're doing that on a weekend too, not like in the middle of the week.
Well, it didn't even say that. It just said coming soon. So hopefully
I thought you said Sunday.
Oh, no, they announced it Sunday, which is today.
Oh, okay. Okay. I thought you meant that they announced it for next Sunday. Okay.
No. Yeah. Mayor Lightfoot made the announcement while we were recording.
Gotcha.
So,
okay. Well, at least we know there will be something.
Yeah. But I hope they get something cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I also wanted to say this too about the Sky was that now that they have this championship and they went on this run that I think has gotten some decent recognition. And as I say, women's sports can always get more and more recognition. It always can have more. I'm hoping that with this championship, with this run, with the recognition that they've gotten, that we'll see even better TV ratings and even better attendance at Wintrust Arena next year. And, I've gone with my buddy Eric to a few of those games when they were at Wintrust, and it's a beautiful facility. I highly recommend anybody who hasn't gone out to a game yet, go out to a game next year. See the Sky play at Wintrust. The arena is beautiful. It's modern. It's clean. It's bright. It's got nice amenities. I would recommend anybody go and check it out. And, I think with this championship, you will see better attendance as we go along and hopefully more viewers. And, that'll be great for the WNBA. It'll be great for the Sky and great for women's sports.
I've only gone I've only been inside the Wintrust Arena twice. And it was both for Star Wars events during Star Wars Celebration.
Nice.
One was for the panel for Star Wars Episode 9, and the other one was for the panel announcing The Mandalorian. So both super awesome for me, at least. But I have not been there for anything else. I am a DePaul alum, and I feel bad that I have not gone to see any Sky games. But I'm going to rectify both of those situations in the coming soon.
Yeah, next year. Be sure to get out to Wintrust. And I think another nice thing, too, that they have over at Wintrust is they got the parking garage that's attached with the Skyway to the arena. So, you're not parking outside and having to walk. I think that's nice and convenient.
I just take the L.
Oh, that's fair. That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah. So, yeah, congratulations to the Sky on a great run. And I think it was probably big for the league. That the Sky won it rather than there's always certain teams that it's kind of more important that they win than other teams. We've seen that in basketball. The Lakers winning is more important than the Pacers winning, or the Knicks winning, or the Bulls winning is more important than Charlotte
The
winning or
Grizzlies.
something. Yeah, there's certain marquee teams. The WNBA doesn't have marquee teams per se, but Chicago's a marquee city, and I think the recognition that they're getting for this victory is going to be really important for the WNBA.
Yeah, I mean, big market, obviously, that's a big factor. And, when you're in a big market, there's more celebrities. So more celebrities will help drive that recognition. And I think the Candace Parker storyline also really helped this. I mean, that was a big part of the story. World-class athlete coming home, wins a championship, and they showed how emotional she was after the game. And that was probably the best part of it, was seeing that. And with all this put together, I agree. The Sky winning this championship is really big for the league. And you hope that I mentioned that you hope to see more people attend Sky games next year and watch the games on TV. You hope for that for the whole league, for all those teams. And, maybe if they grow and profit and they continue to rise, maybe we'll see the league expand. You'll see more cities with more teams.
I think that would be awesome.
Yeah, I mean, maybe Milwaukee would get a team, and maybe you would see just more expansion. Because, the league isn't very big right now, but I think if you can keep growing in profit and size, you can continue to expand. And then the more you expand, the more playoff teams you'll have. So the more playoff games you'll have, more to televise, more to see, and you can distribute talent more. So you'll see more of these women basketball players. I just, I just say, keep going to games, keep watching them on TV, keep supporting them, and help this league grow. Because I think it's really important for sports that this team and this whole entity of the WNBA and women's basketball keeps growing.
Amen. But is there anything else you wanted to talk about?
Not really. The only footnote that I'll say is, and we'll probably talk more about this next week, is that I'm glad the Cubs finally got a GM and that we know who the two top dogs are going forward with this rebuild. Just a side note.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about it, but then I was like, you know what? There's a lot action-packed, and we could probably sneak that in next week a little more.
Yeah, yeah. Like I said, I'm just glad they got it, and we'll be able to talk about it more in substance, I feel like, after tomorrow, because Monday is going to be the presser.
Yeah. But yeah, that's going to do it for this episode of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. I want to thank everybody so much for listening. Please hit subscribe however you listen to podcasts, whether it's iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, TuneIn, Google Play, Spotify, etc. Share this podcast with your friends. That's how we grow the show. Follow us on social media at Swerski Sports, Facebook.com/Swerski Sports, SwerskiSports.blogspot.com, or Facebook, Alex Pat Sports Chat. And again, thank you guys so much for listening. And until next time, bear down.
Cubs win! What a lucky break! The good Lord wants the Cubs to win!
We thank Ditka and God for all they have provided.
Cubs win! Cubs win! Cubs win!
Oh, I don't want her, you can have her, she's a Packer fan. She can't fit in my van.
And she looks like number New Yorkers. Smoking crack is not legal on planes.
Bears 31 to -7.
The Bears!
Oh, when the Bears go bearing down.